Coming off two consecutive wins over the Jets and Patriots, the Denver Broncos hosted the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday, expecting to compete with the Chiefs and finally end their 9-game skid against the AFC West rival. Unfortunately for Broncos country, a few self-inflicted wounds proved to be fatal against the defending Super Bowl champs, who made the most of the opportunities given to them. 43-16, the final score from Empower Field at Mile High. Welcome back for another edition of Broncos Beat. I'm Alexis Perry, joined today by Matt Boyer of Broncos TV, James Palmer from the NFL Network, and Cecil Lammey from 104.3 The Fan. Guys, Sunday afternoon marked the coldest October game in Broncos history with a temperature of 14 degrees at kickoff. But this time around, I really don't think we could blame the weather for Denver's offensive struggles. How disappointing was it to see this team lose to the Chiefs the way that they did, especially coming off back-to-back wins and getting a few key players back in the lineup?
I'll go first. You went against a team that is the defending Super Bowl champions. They're better than they were last year when they won the title. They have a Hall of Fame coach, the best player in football. And when you look at this before the game starts, go, Cecil, give me a player or a position where the Broncos are better than the Chiefs. The roster is just more talented almost at every single spot, top to bottom. So to me, you're going in going, well, this is, doesn't match up. But the reason football is great is if you execute and you don't make mistakes. That's why teams like Air Force compete when they're playing college football, because you don't shoot yourself in the foot. You don't make mistakes. You can execute and outsmart teams. But when that doesn't happen and you're less talented, I think that makes the gap that much wider. And that's what we saw in all three phases in this game on Sunday.
Yeah, and if you look at that matchup between these two teams, the one spot where I'd give the Broncos the advantage, offensive line. And that might be a shocker to people out there, but the plan was to run the ball against Kansas City. It's football 101. Keep Pat Mahomes cold on the sidelines and run the ball, use up the time of possession. And they were doing that with Phillip Lindsay until Phillip Lindsay was knocked out from this game. And it's just very disappointing because you wanted to see where you measured up. How does this team match up? Because New England's not that good. It still was a good win, and the Jets are a terrible team. So, okay, when you play a great team, how do you look? It looks like you got some more work to do.
I thought a lot about when Chad Henne scored the game's final points. I thought a lot about 2016 when the Broncos played the Chiefs and Dontari Poe threw the touchdown pass in the fourth quarter. It had that feeling to it. But you got to remember, Broncos country needs to put this in context. This is still a team very much figuring out who it is in a lot of different places. So, Drew Lock scoring the touchdown, they missed the extra point. This was a game of momentum. You hold the Chiefs to a field goal, but then you throw the pick six. This is still a team that is very much kind of figuring things out. You don't want to make excuses by pointing out the injuries, but, there were a lot of errors there. I just think that this is just a growing team, and to expect like James said, to expect them to come in and play neck and neck with the Chiefs, I don't know if that was necessarily a valid expectation coming in.
I want to make a quick point because I know I started off this show extremely negative and saying that probably Phillip Lindsay or Melvin Gordon would be the third string running back probably in Kansas City. That's where these rosters are. We do have to put in context, like Matt said. You look at the teams that they've lost to at 4-2, they're 22-4. Like they're a couple of the best teams in the Steelers, the Bucks, the Chiefs, who am I forgetting? The Titans. Those are some of the best teams in football who they've lost to. And some of these games actually haven't been, that much of blowouts at times, Alexis. So they are playing and losing to some of the best teams in all of football.
Cecil, I want you to kind of add on to this. What do these mistakes that Matt and James have kind of mentioned, what do they say about where this young offense is in terms of its development 6 games into the season?
The dirty secret in the NFL is it's all about fit. And I want Pat Shurmur to find a better fit with Drew Lock, because you see a certain level of uncomfortableness out on the football field from Lock. There are plays when his athleticism is utilized. Matt brought it up when he rushed in the touchdown, right? And he's doing the dance. So I won't do the TikTok dance, but okay, so those are type of plays. Those are situations when you're really accentuating what Lock does best. But when you don't give him proper checkdowns, when you give him no outlet receivers, when you force him to do things that makes him uncomfortable right now, which is going to like your third and fourth reads, make it easy for him. Bootlegs, rollouts, high-low reads, give him an easy dump off. Let Drew Lock be comfortable. And that's where there's still a coming together moment. And I'm not going to make excuses, but I'm going to tell you and everybody the exact truth. The truth of the matter is It's just going to take time. And with Drew Lock's injury, they haven't had much time. And I am hopeful that Lock will continue to figure things out. And I am hopeful that Pat Shurmur continues what works best for his young quarterback.
But like you guys mentioned, the run game really was a bright spot for this offense, especially in the first half as they racked up 121 of their 177 total rushing yards there in the first 2 quarters. What was working so well for the ground game specifically in that first half?
I think Philip Lindsay gave this team the boost that it needed, especially in a lot of those 2 tight end sets. Lindsay's a guy that doesn't need a lot of room, but when that hole opens up, he hits it. And we saw it, especially late in that second quarter, right before he went out with a concussion. And the other thing, too, you got to remember is we still haven't seen Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay play an entire game together. And I know that's got to be so frustrating for a Broncos offense that came in this season expecting to utilize both those weapons a lot.
You run the football that well, Alexis, it's a great sign. And it keeps Patrick Mahomes, like we said earlier, on the sideline watching the game. The problem is when Patrick Mahomes sat and watched most of the second quarter, his team put up 14 points without him having to even step foot on the field. And when you run the football well, you churn the clock. Obviously, you keep him off the field. But at the same time, if you make any other mistakes, it's compounded because you're not scoring quickly enough and you can't get points on the board. So I do think that's a way to stop Patrick Mahomes by running the football well, but then you need to execute in all the other facets of the game. And in the other phases, they didn't do that.
And you need that running game to set up play action. So if you're out of it because of special teams and pick 6, and now you're down and you can't run the ball, then that doesn't make your play fakes very good when you do utilize play action. So running the ball, playing great defense, it's a fine recipe. It's a championship recipe, honestly, but you've got to be capable of continuing to run the ball without falling behind.
Well, Denver had 411 net yards in comparison to Kansas City's 286. They won the clock battle and they converted on 3rd down, something Kansas City cannot say that they did. They checked a lot of those boxes in terms of what they needed to do to win this game, but they still only put up 16 points. What do they need to do to take this offense to the next level and find the end zone more?
Alexis, good offenses in the NFL can create consistent scoring drives, and for the Broncos that means getting to 3rd and manageable, 2nd and short, and right now they're 30th in the league on third down efficiency. So they've got to figure out a way to not only get into that 3rd and manageable, but also just to create sustained scoring drives when they're getting those first downs.
And Matt's exactly right. Sustained drives. And how do you do that? Sometimes you just got to dink and dunk down the field. Part of the growing pains with Drew Lock is that he's super aggressive and he wants to win the game in the first quarter. You can't do that. If Noah Fant's wide open on a 10-yard drag route, you got to hit him. I don't care if you want to throw it deep to Tim Patrick. Like, you must hit those plays, and Drew Lock has to see him and know that that's what's best. Live to fight another day. Take that deep shot when it's appropriate, but take those short plays to dink and dunk your way down to the field so that you can score.